Good morning. Welcome to all our guests. I'll introduce myself. I'm looking around, and there's some people here that faces I've not seen. My name is Pastor Mark. I'm an associate on one of the pastors on staff here. For those of you who know me, I've been teaching a Bible class for about the last 8 weeks during this hour. That's why you've not seen me in this hour. I have been around just teaching a Bible class, but it's good to be back in here and good to be back worshiping with you, and good to be back from vacation. You all were gracious enough that I was gone last weekend visiting my mother. She's living outside Austin, and I was supposed to go visit her in September, and I kind of had a little ankle thing come up and kind of took that out of the plans, and so I was able to catch up with her this past week, and I was headed home on Wednesday, sitting in that place where great to watch people, in this case, it was the city of Austin Airport. And I'm sitting there waiting for my flight to be called, and people are walking past and back and forth, and I'm going to preach on this topic this morning, and I'm thinking, I wonder what these people are hoping for today. Well, I was hoping for an on-time flight, right? I'm sure there was people walking in there. I carried my luggage on, but I'm sure the people were hoping that they didn't lose their luggage somewhere in the process, right? Judging by the line at the coffee shop just over, kind of across from where I was standing, there was a lot of people who were hoping for a caffeine fix that morning. But then I started thinking, what are their deeper hopes? What are they really hoping for? Well, the lady who walked by who was about 7 months pregnant, that was an easy one. Right? Didn't take a genius to figure that one out. Then there was the mom who walked by with 2 toddlers in tow. And I'm thinking, okay, she's probably wanting, that deep hope she's got in there is about raising her kids, right? To be able to raise her children with those values that have and educate the children have a peaceful life and grow up to be great adults. And there was the businessman in there. He could tell, a computer bag on his shoulder and a phone in his hand in here, and suit and tie, dressed up to the nines. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, he's probably looking to provide for his family. Because whatever he's doing in an airport, it probably involves some business somewhere along the line. A sale or a deal or something in here. Try to provide for his family. And then there was the guy walking by, and he had one of those Christian shirts on you can buy online. You see 100 of them, right? As he was walking by. And I'm thinking, what's this guy hoping for? Maybe more importantly with him, I started thinking, how does he live out that hope? Because we're fellow believers, fellow disciples of Jesus Christ. I kind of know what that hope is, but how do you live that hope out? And how do you live that hope out in the midst of our world today, in the midst of a world that's filled with fear? And people trying to make you afraid and filling you with the fear. How do we live hope out in the midst of that fear? Which is exactly what the movies Hunger Games are about. Movies for this day. The Hunger Games. Somebody asked, which one are you doing? I said, I'm doing all 3 or all 4 movies. Because it's the same theme that runs through all of them. So I have a question here real quick. How many people have seen Hunger Games or read the books? Hey, that's pretty good. All right. So for those of you real quickly that haven't seen Hunger Games, it's a story that takes place in a post-apocalyptic world where the powers that be use fear as a way to control people and kill the hope that people have. And the name Hunger Games comes from is that in their wisdom in trying to instill fear, What the powers that be do is they take 20, every year they take 24 basically high school kids. And they throw them into an arena, and it's last one living wins. They get to try to kill each other. But it's not about the killing, it's about the hope. We got a clip for you. Watch this clip. It's a hope. And in this movie, they use violence, they use oppression, they're using these Hunger Games where people are trying to kill each other in here. You have a dictator whose whole goal in life is to make his life wonderful at the expense of everybody else. You have injustice going on to people on a colossal scale. And it's all designed to kill hope. And the way they are doing that is fear. Using fear to kill hope. And it's a story that I think it resonates so well today because there's so much fear out there in the world. Pastor John prayed for Ferguson, right? The fear of what's going to happen in Ferguson. Doesn't take a genius or a media-savvy person to figure that one out, right? There's all kinds of fear going on of what's going to happen in Ferguson when that news comes out, what's going to happen around the world, the fear going in here. But it's a society we have today in here that it's based upon so much on fear. I can give you an example, right? The last election in November, especially if you watch political ads from Kentucky. Because those political ads in Kentucky didn't tell you why you were supposed to vote for somebody. They were there to make you afraid of somebody else. Fear. It's a world we sit here that says we're supposed to be afraid of this or afraid of that or afraid of that person or afraid of that position or afraid of that proposal. You name it, you're supposed to be, if somebody's going to tell you to be afraid of it. And it goes out, not here, but it goes out sometimes in this larger Christian church that we have, not St. Andrew. Hope you catch that. This larger Christian church, people telling you got to be afraid of this or afraid of that. Now I'm going to do a rabbit trail. I need you to hang with me as I'm running down a rabbit trail here because I got to talk to parents and I got to talk to grandparents. And it's simply this. You need to look and do a deep examination of yourself. If your kids are afraid of you, if your parenting style is based on fear, we got a big problem. If your parenting style is based upon fear, you're killing your kids. You are zapping the life from them. You're zapping the hope from them. You're zapping the joy out of their lives. If your parenting style is based on fear, we got a problem. We need to help you change that. Get that back over to hope. But coming in, but it's not just in the civil realm, right? Is that fear comes out? It also runs out, I think, at times in this thing called faith too, doesn't it? Because we talk about being in a church, right? We're a church, capital C. We're bound together in Jesus Christ. We walk together through this world. We walk together through life. We are one together in here. But at some point in time, right, you and God stand face to face. And there's that fear. That fear that can creep in even to today. Is God going to really see what I've done? Is God going to see my past? Is God going to see the ugliness that's in my world that I'm desperately trying to hide from everybody? Is God going to really see who I am? And when he sees that, is he going to throw me away? Is he going to throw me out? Is he going to walk away? It's that fear. And ironically, is this story here that hinges on fear, because there's a time in here where fear played one of those key roles. And it's that first Easter. Let me take you back to that first Easter. That first Easter morning, we heard the version from Luke. That first Easter morning, right, is that the women go out to the tomb. And they go out to the tomb, and they see that the tomb is empty. And Mary Magdalene later sees that Jesus is risen. He appears to Mary Magdalene. But it says in here, right, in the reading, is that the men didn't quite believe him. They thought they must have been nuts or something. It was so far removed from what they could grasp. Women probably seemed crazy. And then Peter and John go out there later, right? And Peter and John see that the tomb is empty, but they come back more confused than they were when they started. And then it tells us this in John chapter 20. It picks up on that evening in here. Listen to what John describes it. He says, on the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews. Can you get a picture here? You've got the 10 of them sitting probably in the center of this room. And the 10 of them and probably some other people around, and they're kind of going like this. Their eyes are great big, and their ears are up. I kind of envision, right, when you're toddlers, your young elementary school kids, they watch one of those really scary movies too late at night, when they're up there, and they're every sound in the house just drives you crazy, right? So a bang happens outside. What's that? Or noise. They're coming for us. And it's this fear bordering on panic. And all of a sudden, hope appears in the middle of them. Hope appears in the middle of them in Jesus Christ. Hope comes and hope breaks in on their fear. Easter is God's hope breaking into our world of fear. It is God setting the world in a new cycle. It's His hope coming to you, coming to me, coming to the disciples, and saying, Jesus is alive. This is the hope that's in the world. I'm putting it in you. You live in this hope. That's what it means when we say we're Easter people. It means we live in that hope. We live with that hope that is Jesus Christ. We live that hope that He has put in our lives. And all those worries and all those fears that we have and all that stuff that runs around in our brain is, am I worthy? Is God going to not throw me out? The answer is no. The answer is no. Because hope comes and hope dwells right square in the middle of us. And lets us live in that hope. And calls us in that hope. Grab your Bibles if you would. 1 Peter chapter 1. I'm going to start at 1 Peter chapter 1. Somebody get a page number, sing it out so we can get there. As you're working there, describe Peter. Let Peter remember Peter, right? Peter is the guy in here who has I call it foot and mouth disease. He tends to have his foot in his mouth more often than not. Peter is the guy that blows it with Jesus more than once and misses the point. Peter, the guy who denies Jesus 3 times. At the end of his life, he's getting this. He's getting this idea of hope. He's getting this grasp that is hope, that is Jesus. 1 Peter chapter 1. I want you to look at verse 3 because he writes this book on hope. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 3. Listen to what he says. Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to His great mercy, He has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. Born again, baptism. In this hope that God places inside of you, this hope that is Jesus Christ, this hope that is the resurrection, that Jesus is risen from the dead. That's the hope in which we live. That's the hope in which God has placed in us and placed us in that. That's the hope we have. And go on, down to same chapter, verse 13. He writes, therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Keep your mind focused on that hope. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the world, but keep your minds focused on the hope. Think about that hope. Let your mind be filled with that hope that God gives you in Jesus Christ, that has placed inside of you. You don't have to go looking for it. He puts it there. Now, flip over to chapter 3, verse 14. But even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. See, Peter's not the guy to sugarcoat it. Peter realizes that the people in his day and the people in our day, it's going to be hard. And we're going to struggle. We're going to struggle with persecution. We're going to struggle with stuff going on in our world. We're going to struggle with the fear. We're going to struggle with these things. But he sits there and listen to what he says. He says, have no fear of them. Don't let that fear take over. Don't let that fear rule. Have no fear of them. And he goes on. But in your hearts, honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. In other words, simply this. How do you live out the hope? God has put that hope inside of you. God has placed it there. It's His gift to you, what He puts inside of you. And the question is, how do you live that out? It's living that out every day. It's living that out in our world. It's going through the days so people see that hope. In the face of that fear, in the face of the fears that people are trying to throw in our faces and see on the screens and stuff, it's living that hope. It's living that hope out into the world. You want to live counterculturally? You want to live in a way that people will see that out in the world? How people that will stand out in our world today? Live the hope. Don't live the fear. Don't pass on the fear. Live out the hope every day. The question is, how do you do it in your world? How do you do it in your life? How do you do it in where you're at? Because in the movies, the Hunger Games world, there is a symbol. It's called the MockingJay. And that MockingJay symbol, it's given to our heroine Katniss at the beginning of the first movie. And it's a thread that weaves through the entire series in here. And you see it there. It's a kind of a derivation off of a mockingbird. But it's a symbol for hope. And in the Hunger Games world, Katniss is the one who brings hope back to people. And the rest of the books is simply people trying to live in that hope and live out that hope. Jesus Christ is the one who's brought hope into our world and brings hope into our lives and brings hope to us. We're flooded with His hope. And hope is the victory of hope over death, over sin, over life. Jesus Christ is the victory of hope over fear. And filled with that hope, we go out and live it. Filled with that hope, we go from here every day so people can see the hope. Amen.